welcome back to another Board Game Breakfast. First of all, a big thank you for the Kickstarter. It was wonderful and great. Now, as the Kickstarter comes to a halt, as the money comes in from the Kickstarter, we'll then send out surveys and get rewards, and we'll be working on that. So that's going to be coming up, but we're going to keep putting out content. Come back today at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be doing a live Q&A with both me and with Z Garcia, and there's so much to get done, so much to jump into. Just an exciting time. Who cares who won the Super Bowl? I don't know. I'm recording this before I found out. But what's important is there's games to talk about, so let's get to the news. Has announced their lineup for 2015, and there's a bunch of games. One thing I found is interesting is Sleeping Queens is now on its 10th anniversary. A game that I thought was really kind of simple, but it was designed by a young girl, but my kids enjoyed it, still going strong. And then Flashlights and Fireflies, which is just a cool cover and a cool theme. And then Sneaky Cards is another one I thought was interesting, not because of the ninja-like artwork, but because this has you do stuff. You got to get up and go do something, like physical activities. The game gives you that. That could be great, could be bad, who knows. Santa Ragion has announced the Ultimate Edition of of Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space. That is a game that I like quite a bit. I still have it on my shelf right here. I love this game. Cool cover here, in which some players are aliens, some players are humans, and you're writing on pads trying to escape from each other. Really, just so much tenseness in that game, and a cooler version of it coming soon. If you go to BoardGameGeek.com, they're having the Golden Geek Award nominations, where you can go and vote on different categories: best board games, best RPGs, best video games, all sorts of things. It's kind of like the People's Choice Awards, so you can go there and make the nominations right now. Z-Man Games has announced that, yes, they will be picking up the big box version of El Grande, which is exciting because that is a phenomenal game. This one's weird. We have Carcassonne Star Wars has been confirmed. When I was first told this, I said, that's a joke. Now, I love Star Wars, and I love Carcassonne. I don't think the two need to mix. I'll play it, of course, when it comes out, but it just seems like a waste of that theme on Carcassonne. Carcassonne is going around the world. In fact, this week I'll be taking a look at Carcassonne Gold Rush, but anyhow, more interesting game-wise is Antoine Balza tweeted a picture here that you can see of a two-player version of Seven Wonders that he's working on. That sounds really interesting.
Hi, Chapettes. Our hobby is a wonderful hobby. With every year, there seems to be some new mechanism which comes around and mashed together with another, and it makes games more fun and exciting. So why is it whenever there's a new evolution in gaming, people start getting angry? For example, technology in games which require apps, like this one. What's the problem? Well, if a board game requires an app, it's not really a board game. Then tell me, is this a board game? Because it doesn't have black and white pieces, and it doesn't have a board either. What the fudge is this? We should be embracing this technology in board gaming, because just imagine if technology was around when this game came out. This box would be lighter. Because there'd be less cards in it, and maybe no dice. Don't get me started on Fantasy Flight and dice, please. Just imagine there was an app for Arkham Horror, and just think all those event cards could be handled on a small, handy app. It could even have narration, so someone with a kind of Vincent Price voice would be talking to you and telling you what's happening. There'd be eerie music, and there'd also be a button for you to decide what you're going to do, if you're going to do the skill check or not. So one, that would save you time setting up the game, and two, it would save you a lot of money, because that's a lot of cards in there. And just think of other games that would benefit from it. Firefly. So there you go. Don't moan about the future of board gaming, because it's getting better. You agree with me? Like this video.
Hey everyone, I'm Tom Vasel.
Jason Levine.
Sam Healy.
All right, today's question is from Chris, and he says, what are your thoughts on your friends borrowing games from your collection for more than 24 hours? What about new friends to the gaming group who just showed up and letting them borrow?
Well, I let my friends borrow games.
Well, okay. Well, let's start out by saying people that you know pretty well.
Yeah, people that I know pretty well, I let them borrow games. If they say, hey, can I borrow the game? I want to try it out. I'll let them borrow the game, no problem.
Can I borrow your War of the Ring Collector's Edition?
If you want to play it, and but as long as you don't do a component drop, I'm fine with you borrowing it. That's the one thing, is I don't want people messing with my pieces and making sure that everything comes back.
Okay, but what if you know I have 7 kids and 3 dogs?
I'd be a little more wary of giving you
as long
my
as I'm
collector's
there.
edition. Yeah, as long as I'm there, you can borrow for 24 hours. I'll just have someone watching it with a security escort. No. Seriously though, I like letting people borrow my games.
Have you ever lost a game that way though?
No, I haven't.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it because you have like this phenomenal memory that you remember where the games are?
Yes,
You put
I
GPS
know.
locators in all of your games, don't you?
Yes, it's better than what Tom does with the little sticker.
You do?
Tom and his little sticker that says stolen from
He's
Tom
gotta be
Vasel. And mine is GPS things, I've got a little grid where all the games go.
SWAT teams come through the skylights.
Exactly. No.
All right, what about you?
I don't have a problem with people borrowing my games, and of course, that I think it's set. It's the underlying principle is there. It has to have a relationship that is already set in stone. Some guy that shows up for the first game night, I'm not going to say, yeah, go ahead. That just doesn't make sense. That seems foolish. But if there's already a relationship there, you know the person well enough to trust them with a game, I don't see any problem with it. Most gamers, of course, while we don't take care of our games the same way, I think we all have an underlying respect that goes with this is somebody else's property and I want to take care of it, so I'd be okay with it.
And if there's somebody who doesn't have that respect, and you can usually tell those kind of people, then probably not. But those people usually don't ask to borrow your games anyway.
I never let Tom borrow games because he wrecks his components. You got to see the way some of Tom's games look at this point.
Shot it.
That's if you can find the component.
There is a difference, though, really, in how you treat your own stuff and how you treat someone else's things. And for me, I don't actually have people ask me that often, but if someone wants to borrow a game, if I really plan on keeping that game forever in my mind, I will put my name in it. Because that way, every time they open the game, they'll remember. Some people, and this is a good idea I read on the internet, is when someone borrows something from you, you take a picture of them holding what they borrowed. So it's on your camera, because while Jason can remember who borrows what, I can never remember.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, someone borrowed that from me, but I don't remember who.
Yeah.
But the picture in your camera would work. It looks like a perp thing, though.
So you could turn it into local authorities. No, but I always take very good care of my own games, even though I don't sleep.
He doesn't open his own games.
No, I open a lot, but I always organize everything neatly. But actually, when I do someone else's game, as Tom could attest to, when I repackage his games afterwards, I care more about other people's games. I want their game to be extra perfect.
To be fair, between these two, my games are very nicely organized when they're done.
I just alphabetized all those cards, if you didn't notice that.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
Yes, I would have done the same thing, but Sam did it first.
All right, until next time, I'm Tom Vasel.
Jason Levine.
And I'm Sam Healy.
If you have questions, send them to us at dicetower@gmail.com.
Since Snakes and Lattes opened its doors in 2010, we have been inundated with a constant stream of phone calls, emails, and even personal visits from people around the world, all looking to open their own board game cafe. So, today, we present part 1 in a new feature that we call How to Snakes. With a successful business like Snakes and Lattes, you could argue that there are a lot of most important things you need. Good staff, good collection, good food, and so on. But I think that the most important thing of all is location! So where do you open your board game cafe? The natural response is, in my hometown. But that isn't always right. Ask yourself the following questions about your hometown. Does your city have any game stores already? While you might see game retailers as competition, it's quite the opposite. If there's a thriving game store or two, that means your city has a gaming community you can serve. Does your city have any post-secondary institutions? Universities and colleges have students. Students are always looking for places to be social, and many of them already like games. What's the population of your hometown? There's a reason that most of the game cafes that are popping up around the world are near major metropolitan centers. Populations in the multi-millions aren't mandatory, but the bigger the population, the better. Ideally, your location should measure its population in hundreds of thousands, not hundreds. Once you've settled on the city to start your business, you still need to know where in town to set up shop. If your city has a big enough population to warrant a good transit system, you want to be convenient to that system. You'll want a location that gets good foot traffic. If your business is the only reason for people to be in the area, chances are you won't do so well. Pick a neighborhood that has a mix of residential and commercial content. If people are in the area anyway, they're more likely to come in and check you out. If you can afford the rent, pick a neighborhood that is already a destination area for tourists and locals alike. So, next time you're in Toronto, pay us a visit. We'd love to see you. And if you have a town that you think needs a Snakes and Lattes or another board game cafe, mention it in the comments. Location!
Today we're going to look at some stuff from Meeple Source. Meeple Source makes custom meeples and different things. Here you see a bunch of corn in both small and large size for the game Tzolk'in. This is a cool thing. I mean, you could use this for other games, but Tzolk'in would be the obvious choice here. Any game that had food, maybe Stone Age or something like that, this would be a good choice for. I like these. They're very clear and distinct. So then let's take a look at Love Letter. They make basically a bunch of hearts for Love Letter. These are small wooden ones, or you can buy them in a larger size. I don't know which one I like better. Probably the larger ones, just because they're easier to handle. Then this is a really cool upgrade. If you upgraded all your guys from Lords of Waterdeep, now you can also upgrade the skulls for the expansion set. So this is a cool addition there. And then we have, this is my favorite one that they've done. This here is for Bang the Dice game. These are bullets. You got copper and silver bullets as well as arrows. This is really neat. And in fact, if they made a couple, I think red bullets, maybe one other type of bullet, I can't remember how many bullets, Spurs could really use an upgrade for these with these bullets. Maybe we can get them to make an upgrade kit for Spurs, but this is great. If you've banged the dice game and you played a lot, this seems to me like an automatic thing that you'd want to add. And then the last thing we'll look at from Meeple Source, here is the virus tokens for Pandemic. And not only do they have virus tokens for Pandemic, but they also have little meeples that match each of the different characters that you can use. But the viruses, okay, now, these look obviously better than the cubes do. Now, I think it's more potent to compare them to the stuff from LitGo. I like the tokens from LitGo, so I think when it comes down to it, you're going to have to decide which ones you want. Do you want the cutesy look to the game? Then you're going to pick the Meeple Source ones. If you want not so cutesy, you'll pick LitGo. But for me, I think I'm going to probably at this point go with Meeple Source. I would happily use either one of them in my game. The Meeple Source are going to take up more space. You'll have a harder time fitting them in the Pandemic box. And you might not want that cute look to your game. But I think with the game being as it's kind of grim and forbearing anyway. You know, you're talking about diseases that destroy humanity. So maybe a bit of cuteness doesn't hurt it at all. All this from Meeple Source.
Hi, Suzanne here with this week's featured board game app. Plaid Hat Games' masterpiece, Summoner Wars, has been on the app stores for quite a while now, so we're long overdue to feature it here. Let's take a quick look at this unique two-player game. In this two-player tactical game, your units are represented by cards that display abilities, hit points, etc. The goal of the game is to knock out your opponent's summoner card. Through 6 phases like summoning, movement, and attack, you must outmaneuver and outbattle your opponent. Beyond the gameplay, if you choose, you can also kind of metagame Summoner Wars by custom crafting the deck you bring to the game. Originally released in 2012, the Summoner Wars app was developed by Playdeck, which always brings high-quality board game apps to market, and Summoner Wars is no different, although I do think you can see a little bit of its age around the edges. The AI, which there are 6 of, sometimes processes for a while during the game, and a few of the UI choices feel a bit dated today. That said, this is a really great port of the game. The art looks sharp, some subtle animations add life to the game. The tutorial does an excellent job of introducing you to the game and the phases, and the rules are implemented in an easy-to-browse way. The multiplayer features are all here, including pass and play and asynchronous online play as well. There's a full card gallery and then, of course, that deck building ability. It's not the most intuitive part of the app, so it may take you a try or two to get used to, but from a gameplay perspective, this is such a cool thing that makes the game infinitely replayable. Currently, Summoner Wars is free to download with the ability to purchase individual or a bundle of 9 additional factions, and there's also a mercenary pack available. The amount of content is pretty impressive, and as a nice touch, each faction also has a few strategy tips included, which is really cool when you're trying it for the first time. The app is for Android or iOS, and it'll run on a phone or a tablet, but I think I'm getting old because I find it pretty tough to play on the phone. Everything is really small, so unless you're really familiar with the cards or a Summoner Wars junkie, you should probably stick to the tablet on this one. Summoner Wars is a great game with a wonderful app to complement it. The vast faction and deck options make this a deep game experience with a low cost of entry. Give it a try.
Okay, if you watched Dice Tower last week, you'll notice I put out a few reviews of my own and some other reviews of others, but we also put out some different top 10 lists, like my top 10 HeroScape characters, my top 10 heroes from Marvel Legendary. And I know that some of you don't like those as much. Other people enjoyed those. We'll be doing those in the future, not so many at one time, but maybe you'll see one a week or something like that as they come out. I also put out the top 10 gaming terms explained, which was a lot of work to put together, but I really enjoyed doing it, and I hope that was helpful, and we'll be continuing that series and doing more of those as time goes by. This week, we will definitely have some live plays. I don't know exactly when they're going to happen yet. I should know by the end of today or tomorrow, but one of them is really cool, and another one is also really cool. 2 cool games that you may not expect that we'll be playing live this week on the Dice Tower. So look forward to that. And again, I mentioned that we're doing a live show today, but I'll be doing some reviews. I got a pile of reviews. Ryan Metzler's back, everybody. He'll be reviewing this week. I'll be taking a look at Cargo Train, Dogs of War from Cool Mini or Not. As I said, Carcassonne Gold Rush, Scoville, Camel Up, the Spiel des Jahres winner. This little weird game called Cinelix, Tiny Epic Defenders, the pretty Smash Up expansion, and I'll be doing the Dice Masters Yu-Gi-Oh! And then Cthulhu Wars, baby! And you might even see more reviews in that this week. You never know. We are in it. We're producing. And also there's a Dice Tower coming out Tuesday and all that stuff at DicetowerNetwork.com. Okay. What do we got? Oh, Chaz. And man, does he makes me laugh here. Take a look.
The following is a public apology to the Abyss board game. Dear Abyss board game, several months ago I publicly ridiculed you for your 5 different box covers. I suggested that this collection of covers was nothing more than a silly marketing gimmick that added nothing to the board game hobby, except confusion. But due to recent events, I now see the error of my ways, and so I have come here today to apologize. Yes, I realize that I was wrong to criticize you the very moment that I laid eyes upon the box cover for the upcoming Pandemic Legacy board game. Or should I say, box covers. Yes, that's right, Abyss board game. You may have set the stage for pointless box cover marketing stunts, but Pandemic Legacy steals the show by not only coming in multiple box covers, but by also adding a Season 1 subtitle. The Season 1 subtitle suggests that these 2 variations of the exact same thing are but the first in multiple waves of Pandemic Legacy titles. Each installment, presumably, will also be available in a variety of box covers of their own, thus exponentially increasing the number of duplicate Pandemic Legacy games on the market, and making it possible for customers to purchase Season 1 only to soon after discover another Pandemic Legacy game in a different box. Oh, is this the next Pandemic Legacy game in the series? Or actually just the same Pandemic Legacy that they just bought, only sporting a slightly different box design? Like a board game mutation, as it were. Like a virus. Oh, I see what you did there, Pandemic Legacy. My word, it's totally worth it. I'm assuming that future seasons of Pandemic Legacy will continue to ramp up the confusion. Perhaps the Season 2 box covers will sport the artwork from other games. Oh, Season 3 could capitalize on the collectible blind buy craze, randomly distributing the game's components throughout 1,000 identically marked little packages. And Season 4 will actually just be repackaged Pandemic Legacy Season 1 games that were returned to the store after being mistakenly purchased for Christmas by your well-meaning, but utterly befuddled relatives. Oh no! And that is why, my dear Abyss board game, I apologize for mocking you for introducing a ridiculous fad that, compared to Pandemic Legacy shenanigans, doesn't actually seem all that bad anymore. I'm sorry. With sincerest sincerity, Chaz Marler, Pair of Dice Paradise.
Hey everybody, Steve here, and while the Super Bowl may be over, the football season is just kicking off in the board game world. Let's get right to it with your AFR 2-minute drill. The lead story this week comes from Play.com, where they've just released the updated version of their second season football game. The new version comes with an updated game booklet, 2 speed board charts, and an instant results deck. It also comes with the Seattle and New England teams from this past season, so you can replay yesterday's Super Bowl until the full season comes out later this year. The focus of this new version is to speed up play so that you spend less time flipping pages and more time enjoying the game. Make sure you head on over to the Play.com website for more information about that new game. In other football-related news, the 2014 NFL season has been released for Digging Deep Football from Digging Deep Sports. And if you're looking for something on a more casual side, there is a brand new company that just released their first product, and it's called Flip Football. This is for 2 players, and they each get an identical deck of play cards that they put down and then flip over to see the result of the play. You can read more about that game at the flip.com website, and also stay tuned for a new expansion that will be coming out for that game later this year. Alright guys, that's all for now. Be sure to tune into the After Further Review YouTube channel every Tuesday for all the sports board game news, and you can follow us on our Facebook and Twitter pages for late breaking news throughout the week. Until then, my name's Steve, and I'll see you next time. After Further Review.
Greetings and welcome to my opinion about Imperial Assault, a new board game which I just played with my friend Cody in the skirmish mode. Skirmish mode, very fun. Lots of engaging tactics to think about. Each character has their own little devices, and Darth Vader is a menacing tank. Okay, just if he's on the board, just run away. That's my opinion on that one. Anyway, lots of fun. I only played the skirmish game with Cody. That's the 2-player game. The setup, a little cumbersome, but ultimately rewarding. So, if you have the chance to play said game, I encourage you to do so. And with that, I bid you a fond adieu.
Other segments this show that I don't want to go too long here, but I want to talk about the most important topic you will ever hear in your life, and that is hyperbole. Okay, maybe not the most important topic, but I was thinking about this. When I play games with other people, I usually, when I get new games for the first time, I kind of keep track of how the game is trending by hearing vagues. Okay, these people tended to like it, some people didn't like it, but I try not to read people's opinions of a game until I played it myself, because I don't want that to color me very often. That doesn't happen in my gaming group, though. If someone in my gaming group has played it and said, this is the best game ever, or, oh, this game's awful, I can't avoid that. Now, the thing is, though, hyperbole can color my perception of a game the very first time I found. If someone comes and says, this game is amazing, someone emails me and says, yes, sir, it's amazing. Other people, it's amazing, and I play it, and it's not amazing, I'm like, oh, wow, it wasn't all that. Well, I might have said, oh, this is pretty decent, but here I'm saying, well, that's not the greatest game ever. And there's kind of like a little bit of backlash to that. So that's something I have to watch for. And it can even be, someone says, oh, this game's awful. And we play it, and we're like, no, it wasn't so bad. Then we're like giving it really good reviews because it wasn't so bad. Now, again, I'm not saying that's how I'm saying my first impressions are often formed based on what other people tell me. Now, I've done that myself, right? I talk about games and I'm like, guys, this game is amazing, or this game is horrible. So if I say a game's horrible and then you play it and you're like, well, it wasn't so bad, then my hyperbole has actually helped that game some. And if I say a game's amazing and you play it and you're like, well, it's just okay, then my hyperbole has hurt that. I don't know what to think about this, but I think hyperbole, it's going to happen, okay? And I'm not going to stop doing it as long as I think that is truthful. If I say a game's really amazing and great, I should mean it. I think hyperbole should be curtailed. I don't think every game can be the best ever or the worst ever. I think it's good to have a sliding scale. And I hope that on the Dice Tower we do that. We mention games that are great, amazing games, but we also talk about a lot of decent games and good games and okay games and bad games and then a few horrifyingly bad games. But it's really important when talking to new people who are getting into the board gaming hobby, because if I say, oh, you'll love a Battle Artist game, is amazing, I'm always much more cautious. I'll say, this is an interesting game. Why don't you try this one? Here's Steam Park. This is a very fun game about rolling dice, but I'm very careful not to build the game up too much, not to get them thinking this is, because we can do that. We're like, oh, all you've ever played is Monopoly and Sorry and Uno? Well, these games are going to blow your mind. Well, maybe they will, but maybe they won't. So we have to be careful about building expectations. This happens with movies. Someone tells me a movie's awful. I go into it and I'm like, oh, so much better than I thought. And then I enjoy the movie. But if someone tells me this movie is groundbreaking, Oscar nominee, and I go in and I'm like, wow, man. Early perception. So when we're talking to new folks, getting into the hobby, or we're teaching board games for the first time, let's be cautious. And I think sometimes when teaching people a game, it's great to be enthusiastic. But I think we should be careful not to oversell it, because then when people play it, they're like, oh, well, it wasn't as good as you thought. I don't know. Maybe this whole segment has been hyperbole and not necessary. It's just what I've been thinking about this week. All right, Iain, what do we got next?
Hi, I'm Iain from Open Box Games Jr. and welcome to Component Moment. And today I'm going to take a look at D&D minis. And guess what? A new Dungeons and Dragons game is coming out called Temple of Elemental Evil. And that's what made me want to show you my D&D minis. I have a whole collection of them. This is just some of it. And you can even buy a book so you can have it as a role-playing game too. And you can buy new maps. And there's different sets like Underdark, Angel Fire, Dragon Eye. There's a bunch. You gotta check it out. See you next time. Bye.
So last week we talked about board games and movies, specifically about product placement in Gone Girl and the failure of the movie Battleship. We talked about how that probably will mean that Hollywood won't look to board games as a source for future material. But there was one great board game movie that we should talk about, 1985's Clue. Over the holidays, I rewatched Clue and was again impressed with what a fun, punchy movie it is. At 30 years old, it has aged extremely well. While it was a flop at the box office and universally panned by critics, it has gone on to have an enduring legacy as a cult classic. There was an article on BuzzFeed a year ago about the movie's origin and legacy, which I'd strongly suggest you read. So the question, though, is why Clue? Why would they make a movie about Clue and not, say, Monopoly? One thing Clue has going for it is characters. Everybody knows who Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet are, and so it was fun to see them up on the big screen. I don't think you could make a movie about Uncle Pennybags and the dog and their adventures at St. James Place. Also, with a movie about Clue, there's a very easy premise to sum up that everyone understands.
We're trying to find out who killed him, and where, and with what.
Clue is also a mashup of two popular genres, the movie mystery and the screwball comedy. I guess they figured that nobody would take a drama about a board game seriously, although I am still hoping that eventually they get around to making a dark, gritty reboot about Clue. Clue also has great actors, great writing, great pacing, and great music. It also has some extremely quotable lines.
Flames on the side of my face.
Honestly, I'm sure I spent more time watching that movie in the last 30 years than I certainly have playing the game. So could there be more movies about board games? Absolutely. Keep in mind that Clue came out in the 80s, back when Hollywood was still generating mostly original content. There was none of this, or this, or this going on when Clue was in theaters. But would they ever make movies about our board games? Well, that's what we'll look at next time.
And that's it. Wowzers! I'm so excited. Okay. Don't forget, 1 o'clock today, live Q&A time with me and Z. People have been asking, how do we know when live stuff goes on? Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out. Also subscribe to us on Twitter, @The Dice Tower. We always announce there about our live shows, and even if you missed a show live, you can still watch it later on. We have a really cool idea that we might be able to pull off in live play. Still working it out because it requires communication around the world, but just keep an eye or an ear out for that. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast.
Thanks for watching Board Game Breakfast. Tune in each week for your daily dose of gaming goodness with Tom Vasel and all the gang. Until next time, I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast, a Dice Tower production, sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., an amazing place to buy board games. Cool stuff, in stock, at CoolStuffInc.com.